Hello and welcome back to Community Connection. I'm Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague. As our city works through the process to restructure our police department, finding ways to better serve victims of crime was identified as a top priority. Just this year, the city hired Ann Thompson as the department's first full-time victim services coordinator. She's joining me today to discuss her new role. Thanks for being here, Ann. So happy you're here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, so I'm going to jump right in there because this is a new role with the city and wanted to learn a little bit about your background. If you can tell us a little bit about your background and your experience within social work.
My social work experience started at Waypoint Services in Cedar Rapids in Lynn County. I started volunteering there as going on hospital calls, following up with women who had experienced domestic violence, visiting with them, validating, connecting them with any resources that I saw fit in the Lynn County area. And then doing that for a while, I discovered that I wanted to do more. So I started working at a shelter that was connected with Waypoint. And with that, I worked with women there who were in shelter, just validating a lot their stories, listening to what their experiences were, being there for them, as well as, connecting them with services. I also then wanted to do more because I was starting to really, I think, find my niche and, was starting to find like a purpose, So I started to facilitate support groups. I did that for 3 years at Waypoint with women who experienced DV. I just found that whole experience was very rewarding. I mean, it was challenging at times, but it was something that was just, I felt it was near and dear to my heart. I worked for Foundation 2 as a mobile crisis outreach counselor for about 2 years. And that was going out on calls, responding to people who were experiencing mental health crisis, and then also connecting them, doing assessments and connecting them with services within the area, that would move them forward, whatever that may be. And during that time, I thought I was going to go back. I was going to go to school and get an associate's degree, and be good with it. Well, now I went from associate's to bachelor's and finished my master's program in social work, because I just feel helping women, connecting them with services, validating their stories, is just something that I like doing. And like I said, I did my first year of my internship, I did RVAP, so I worked with rape victims there. And now I'm here. So that basically is my background in social work.
I really appreciate hearing how diverse it's been. And one key element that I hear is serving women, supporting women through a lot, as well as listening. I think that's one big element of being a social worker, is just listening to the stories of individuals. Now, you're on the police department as a civilian.
Yes.
And so you're not a sworn officer, correct?
No, I am not.
Mm-hmm. So I want to know a little bit about what will be your role as a victim services coordinator.
Officers, when they go out on calls, they don't always have the time to follow up with that victim. So therefore, I'll read through their case notes. They'll send them to me and say, hey, I followed up with this person. Can you help out? Or I went on a call. Can you help, with following up with them? What I'll do is follow up with that victim. And again, to your point, listen, to validate, find out what services that they're needing, and then with that, connect them with the services within the Johnson County area, whether that be sheltering, legal services, schools for their kids, whatever it may be. That's what I'll help them, become connected with. I kind of close that gap in service, I guess, between, the officers going out there and, not having any follow-up to doing that within like 72 hours, which I like to follow up with somebody to let them know, that somebody's here for them, somebody cares, and there are services out there that they can utilize to move them forward. And I think just, like I said, being a liaison between the law enforcement and myself is just huge, because it kind of ties it all together that law enforcement was there and then they have this follow-up. And like I said, just a lot of times validating their stories, kind of meeting them where they're at.
Sure.
Finding out some just want to talk, some want services, so just being that person that is there for them and knowing that they can call back if they need.
So, of course, with your role as a mental health professional, when you work for Foundation 2, one of the things that I hear you talking about is working with these victims of crime and allowing space for them to talk about their personal tragedies, right? That's a part of what this role is. And you even talked about connecting with resources and that type stuff. I think the general public may not know, how often someone, is a victim of a crime. And also, if it was just left up to the officer intervening, maybe making an arrest or taking down a statement, with that victim, the trauma is still there. The experience is still there. And so wondered if you can just talk about, how critical your role is in connecting with the resources, listening, and what are some of those resources that you connect people with?
I feel that listening and validating is key, because not everybody's going to process trauma in the same way. Some women I've talked to, they go through that experience and they want to have it over. They want to be done with it. And there's others that trauma can affect them a month down the road, 3 months, a year down the road. You never know when those triggers are going to come up. So I think it's really important, connecting the victims with services, so they know that there's somebody there that they can reach out to if and when, this trauma is recreated or triggers hit or, something happens in their life that kind of brings all that back again.
What are some of the agencies that you work with?
Some of the agencies that I work with the Domestic Violence Intervention Program with DVIP, and they are a great resource. They can do sheltering. They can provide many different resources as far as financial. They can help with legal services, just such a wide variety. And their support system is always going to be there. So I work with them, RVAP with a Rape Victim Advocacy Program. If I follow up with sexual assault victims, they're a great resource. Johnson County Attorney's Office, if they have any legal questions, I will refer them to that resource. Iowa Legal Aid, if they have any legal questions. I also connect people with Crime Victims Compensation Program. which is a great program, and many people don't know about it, but it can help victims of crime recoup, the money for, say, like if they have to travel back and forth from out of state for a trial, if they have lost wages, the medical cost, if they're a victim of crime to where they've been injured and have medical costs, can help with that. Counseling, buying program, which is also, I think, very important if a victim has their abuser arrested. It's a program to where they can be notified about any movement with him, whether he's transferred when he gets out. And that is at times a big comfort because they know what the status is. I also work closely with NISA and Monsoon, which are both culturally specific agencies in Iowa City. And since there's such a diverse population here, I think it's so helpful to connect a victim from another culture to these agencies because they are in tune with their culture. They can help navigate them through a legal system or different processes or different questions that they have. So they're just such a good resource and they're very helpful. And also, like with UAY, if you're working with this United Action for Youth, if there's kids involved, I will work with them because kids often too suffer a lot of trauma.
So you work with, it sounds like you've worked with not only older people or diverse populations is who you'll come in contact with, but also young people. I never even thought about the connections that you'll have with young people and getting them some resources. It really does sound to me like this is an opportunity for those that have experienced an unfortunate event to actually have a one space to come to get some advice on resources for one. Like, I've experienced this is what I'm going through. What services are out there if a person hasn't been involved with navigating some resources for assistance, no matter what that assistance is, it could seem overwhelming. And if you don't know any, sometimes people don't know, have the connections to individuals that might be able to advise them. And so happy that this is a part of what you do for those within our community. Now, that we just talked about learning opportunities really for victims in a way, right? That is learning, liaison is learning. You'll also be having the opportunity to train some of the police department. And I'm wondering what that might look like, some of the training opportunities.
Well, with this being a fairly new position, we're still trying to kind of navigate the waters and figure out just exactly what it's all going to entail. I think training right now, if there's any like new resources or anything that comes up, those that if I feel that they're beneficial for officers to, have with them, if they're out on a call, they can say, here's some resources, which we do have a sheet that lists resources on there. But if there's any that really, I feel kind of, I'd say, like if there's a mental health call, get resources for mental health. And also with training, from my experience with working like with mobile crisis outreach and also with DV victims, it all intersects with mental health. It can be a part of that trauma. So knowing what to look for when you go on a call, like, how the victim is reacting, what mannerisms they're portraying, just different things like that, sometimes might be overlooked when actually sometimes they might be signs of, them having some type of mental health concerns going on. So I think really honing in on what those signs are is really important, because there can be many.
Absolutely.
But like I said, right now, as far as the training, it's going to evolve. It's going to, evolve, and I don't really know what that's all going to entail.
Sure.
So that's, as far as the training, that's kind of where my thought process is right now.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for just retraining some of the things that you mentioned that are on already out there for officers.
Mm-hmm.
The Guy Link Center will be coming out, or is
Yep.
already open, right?
It is out, yeah.
And I believe that every now and then we need a refresher on what opportunities some of these entities have for people, because I think sometimes we get busy, throughout, and we don't really realize what one agency, the wealth of resources that they have. We might be used to sending people there for one or two things, because it's kind of a high need in the area. But there could be other resources that they have, and I think that's where value will be given to the police department as you learn or want to reiterate some of those opportunities for people to connect. I think it'll just be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you too for the opportunity. I so appreciate it.
Yes, well, we're looking forward to just the work that you're going to be doing with people in our community. It's important work, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to give people resources and to allow victims to really have the support that they need during what, you're right, is a tragic time for many people.
Yep. And I just want to mention this one last thing. The mission statement of the Iowa City Police Department, I think that is a very key component in not only everybody at the ICPD, but with my line of work. And the last part of that, I think, is I really hone in on it, because the whole thing says to work in partnership with the community, enhance trust, protect, encourage, and compassion, and empower victims of crime through excellence in service. And I think with that said, that portrays my mission here.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much. And we're wishing you all the best as you navigate with individuals within our community. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you too.
Yes. Take care. Have an awesome and amazing rest of your day.
And you as well.
Thanks. That's our show for today. If you would like to learn more about the recommendations on how to restructure the police department, just visit icgov.org/preliminary plan. There you can read over the outline plan and provide feedback by taking a short survey. We'll be back again with another episode of Community Connection soon. Until then, take care, Iowa City.